James and Ben here for Odds Checker US. We got UFC 277 this Saturday going down in Dallas, Texas. And let's get right into it. We got a really interesting main card here. We're going to start first in the light heavyweight division. Magomed Ankalaev and Anthony Smith. And Magomed Ankalaev, one of the biggest betting favorites. I think he's the second biggest betting favorite on this card. Michael Morales being the first. But Ankalaev minus 500. The comeback on Anthony Smith plus 380. Ben, your thoughts on this fight? Seems pretty clear cut on the odds, but which way are you going here?
I'm going to really go out on a limb here, and I'm going to pick Ankalaev. I mean, what are you really supposed to do? I'd say maybe throw him in a parlay. Betting-wise, maybe inside the distance or something. But then again, I don't know if he's going to win inside the distance. Anthony Smith is really tough. Ankalaev actually has a few. It kind of seems like you never know how he's going to win because he has a few decision wins and he has a few knockout wins. But, I mean, everyone that's being thrown in front of him, he's just been murdering basically for the most part, except for Paul Craig, who he won that.
Admits everyone. I mean, Paul Craig's the exception to the rule.
Yeah. But I mean, even in that fight, he was up on the scorecards in every round. You know, he was going to win that fight, and then literally 1 second left. So I mean, it's hard. He should still be probably undefeated in my eyes, but he's not. And I think in this fight, you know, he might try a little bit of wrestling because I think we've seen Anthony Smith struggle a little bit with takedowns before, but I mean, Ankalaev just has no holes in his game, right? I mean, He's pretty sound everywhere. So it's a really tough fight for Anthony Smith. I'd love to see him win personally, just as an Anthony Smith fan, but I don't know if he can do it. So I'm not picking Ankalaev.
Anthony Smith, his nickname's Lionheart. That pretty much describes his entire career. This is a guy that's had a number of comeback victories, but the problem is, Ben, this is only a 3-round fight. That's actually why I think the play here is Magomed Ankalaev by decision. If you look at his last couple fights, he's not been finishing his opponents. He did finish Ian Cutelaba a few fights ago, but Anthony Smith's a lot more durable, a lot better of a fighter. And you look at a guy like Anthony Smith who fought someone that is a finisher in Glover Teixeira. Glover couldn't finish him until later in the fight. Same thing with Rakic. Rakic never ended up finishing Smith in that fight. He just ended up winning. So I think Smith's durability will lead him to the scorecards here, but you got to go to Ankalaev, like you mentioned here. There's really no holes in his game. He is the new breed of light heavyweights in this weight class. And I just think, with Smith, Smith's a guy that you can never count out. I have no issue with anyone betting Smith in this fight at plus 380 just because he is Mr. Unpredictable, but I just don't think we're going to see a finish here. So the play for me is going to be Magomed Ankalaev by decision, way better than that minus 500. I just don't see Ankalaev finishing this within the 3 rounds, especially with who he's fighting in a very durable opponent in Anthony Smith. Okay, let's get to the next fight. We've got Alexander Pantoja taking on Alex Perez, and right now the odds makers have Pantoja as the slight favorite at minus 160. The comeback on Alex Perez plus 135. I have a bit of a read on this fight, and I'm a little bit curious about the odds here, but I'll get your take on it first.
Well, I like Perez. I do as an underdog. I think Pantoja's looked very good over his last few fights. That excellent submission win against Ravel, but I mean, the last time we've seen Perez get subbed recently was in his title loss to Figueiredo. But I mean, in a 3-round fight here, I like Perez. I think he has a little bit more to offer on the feet. Pantoja seems to just load up on those 1-2s. He's a much heavier hitter here, but Perez, he's a really tough guy to get out of there. So I think he can kind of keep this one standing, and I think he can implement a better striking game here. And I don't necessarily know that they're pretty even on the feet. I would side maybe with Pantoja if they're in a grappling exchange just to end it with a sub. But Perez submission defense, aside from last fight, has looked pretty good so far. And so I think they are more evenly matched on the ground. And on the feet, I give Perez a slight advantage here just because I think he's a little bit cleaner striker. And like I said earlier, I think he's a little bit more to offer on the feet. Pantoja is just those 1-2s. So I like him at these odds. If it was closer to even, I'd probably back Pantoja. But I like Perez as the underdog with this price.
I love this because I'm going the other way here. And actually, I was talking about the odds. I think the odds should be more in favor of Alexander Pantoja. And here's why. So first and foremost, Alex Perez, you look at it here on Tapology, these are all the canceled fights he's had since the Figueiredo fight. And by the way, that fight was in November of 2020. So we don't even know if Perez is going to be able to make weight. I would keep an eye on the weigh-ins personally, Ben, if I were you, because if you remember the last fight he had against, wasn't the last one, it was 2 fights ago when he fought Matt Schnell. He actually missed weight for that fight. And he's had trouble on the scales before. And that fight actually forced the fights to get canceled there. So I'm a little bit worried about the weight cut. I know he's had a lot of notice, but still, that's one concern. The second concern is the layoff. Third concern is all of his wins in the UFC are against opponents that aren't in the UFC anymore. So that's another concern. Like, as great as Perez has looked, he's beating guys that just aren't UFC level at this point. Formiga was a bit of a weird cut. He should probably still be in the UFC. But outside of that, De La Rosa, Espinoza, Torres, Shelton, De Thomas, they are not in the promotion anymore. And the losses that he's had have been brutal. like you mentioned it there. Joseph Benavidez, the former title challenger, he was finished in the first round in a fight that he was completely outclassed. Figueiredo, same thing, completely outclassed there. What that says to me is Alex Perez is not a contender. Pantoja is. Pantoja, finish over Brandon Royval. Very good win there. Manel Kopp, that guy's been knocking out everyone. Didn't knock out Pantoja. Got it done there. Finished Matt Schnell. Lost to Askar in a close fight. Lost to Davison, but also has a win over Brandon Moreno. So I like Pantoja here. I think minus 160 is pretty generous. To me, this is his fight to lose, and I like him there at minus 160. I think the line could be even higher. And I just, again, with Perez, what it comes down to for me, just not active enough for me. Weight issues and level of opposition. So I'm going Pantoja to get it done, but I'll go by decision, get even better value there over Alex Perez.
Convincing me over here. I'm about to switch.
We'll there we go. That's what we're doing here. Okay, next fight. Derrick Lewis, Sergey Pavlov. Fun fight. Derrick Lewis fighting in Texas, which typically does not favor him, Ben. I don't know if you've seen the stats, but right now this fight is near even. I've even seen Pavlov as a more of a favorite this week, but Derrick Lewis minus 105, Sergey Pavlov minus 115. Who are you liking here?
Now, this is a fight I will not be convinced otherwise of, even if we are opposite. I am taking Derrick Lewis. I think this line should be higher. I mean, Derrick Lewis, especially recently, his striking has at least improved, which, I mean, you know, at the heavyweights, it's kind of just the hardest hitters of the division, which Derrick Lewis is one of the hardest hitters in the division and quite possibly in UFC history. And I'll stand by that word forever. I mean, he has knocked out. I mean, that Curtis Blades knockout, that uppercut was beautiful. That was, of course, a few fights ago. Then that loss to Cyril Gane, which is tough because Cyril Gane is probably the best heavyweight in the world. I think he's better than Francis Ngannou, even though he lost. Sometimes, as Michael Bisping said, the best fighter doesn't always win. So I think Cyril Gane's the best. And so that's a tough loss there. Then he went out and he looked excellent against Chris Daukaus. So, I mean, and then bad against Tai Tuivasa, who has an excellent chin. But that's
he nearly finished Tuivasa in that first round. We got to be honest
him.
here. I think 90% of fighters in that weight class would have lost by first round knockout. Tuivasa somehow survived.
I remember watching that fight and I was like, how is this dude standing? So, I mean, to eat those shots from Derrick Lewis, I don't think that's something that Sergey can do in this fight. I think he will be knocked out. When we saw him in his UFC debut, I mean, granted, that's his UFC debut, so you can only take so much away from it. But he was knocked out by Alistair Overeem, another really hard hitter. Now he's up against kind of someone who's similar in that regards because he's a very hard hitter. And his striking has looked excellent over his last few fights, even though he does have a few of those losses. So I am going to be backing Lewis here. I think this line should be wider. I think he is actually, you could probably get even better odds by finish because I don't really see him winning a decision here. But one of them is going to go out. So, I mean, this is heavyweights, so you always do. I think the line is this even because it's heavyweights and Pavlovich is a knockout artist himself, you know. So both these guys are really hard hitters. So I do see why the line is where it is, but that only gives us a better price on Lewis, and I'm willing to take it.
Yeah, I completely agree here. I like Derrick Lewis by knockout. That's the play here. Take the knockout prop. Derrick Lewis is most likely not winning a decision. He's definitely not winning a submission. So I would go knockout here. I'm with you. I think Lewis, if you look at that Tuivasa fight, you might look on paper and say, oh, he got knocked out. Maybe he's on the decline. He's 37. But the reality is, like we talked about there, he nearly finished Tuivasa in that fight. He also beat Chris Daukaus. He's also knocked out Curtis Blades, who we saw pick up kind of a weird win last week with that whole injury. But Lewis is good. I'd say if I had to rank heavyweight hitting power, it goes Francis Ngannou, and then it goes Derrick Lewis. And I think Lewis has still got it here. And I know it's only 3 rounds, but I think he can knock out Pavlovic. So I'm going Derrick Lewis by knockout. Keep an eye on this line. Actually, you might want to bet it now because I could see the line going in Lewis's favor. He's a fan favorite. I could see people betting it closer to the fight. So maybe get on that now. But if any of you got him at plus money like I did earlier this week, good on you because Derrick Lewis should win this fight. So I'm going with Derrick Lewis to get it done.
This is also in Texas. Which we should mention. Lewis has not done very well. In fact, if you look at his losses, the Tuivasa fight, was that in? No, that wasn't in Texas, or was it? Yes, it was. It was in Houston. The Gane fight was in Houston as well. This is in Dallas, so maybe Houston's the issue. It's not, just Houston.
The
whole state, you know, is all right. Yeah. But I think even if it is, I think he breaks a curse here. So, you know, he's due to get a Texas win here.
All right, co-main event, interim flyweight title fight. This is actually a rematch. People forget they did fight in 2019. Brandon Moreno, KaraFrance. Right now, Brandon Moreno, a moderate favorite at minus 200. The comeback on France, plus 170. Which way are you going here, Ben?
That first fight is worth mentioning because I think it will be, for the most part, basically the same. We saw Moreno, you know, stay at distance. KaraFrance, you know, he's got an excellent knockout power, and he really likes to use what is usually reach disadvantage to kind of get inside and finish his opponents. You know, he has those 2 recent knockout wins. I don't think he's going to knock out Moreno. No one ever has. No one's finished Moreno in his professional career, which means in this 5-round fight, which is worth mentioning that it's also 5 rounds, he would have to finish Moreno to beat him, because I don't think he's going to beat him by decision, to be honest with you. I think Moreno is going to be the fresher fighter over 5 rounds, and I think that this is a 5-round fight. He's going to really play into Moreno, especially the second time around. If he didn't beat him in 3 rounds in the first fight, I don't think he's going to beat him in 5. Because I think the 4th and 5th round do favor Moreno here. As we saw against those fights against Figueiredo, I mean, he looked good in those championship rounds, basically fresh, and he has a lot of experience going to those 4th and 5th rounds, something KaraFrance does not have. That being said, I think Moreno's going to stay away from that big shot. I think he's going to play this fight from a distance, and I think he's a little bit cleaner. He's excellent at fighting at a distance, so I think that this fight is going to go his way. And he's minus 210, so it's not exactly, some sharp play, but I would maybe back him by decision here. I don't really see him maybe subbing France, but I don't know. I think he's going to win by a decision here personally. So bring that juice down by taking Moreno by decision.
I'm going the same way here. Yeah, you mentioned the 5-round experience. Moreno also switching camps up. He's with James Krause now at Glory MMA. Krause, one of the best coaches in the game. We'll see if that pays off. You mentioned there France's knockout power, but one of the guys he knocked out was Cody Garbrandt, who's traditionally been knocked out a lot in his career. So you almost can't. I mean, you can count it, but I just think you're fighting a guy in Moreno who, like you said, has never been finished. I'm with you. I think Moreno's last stoppage win was against Figueiredo, but there was a weight cut issue there. I don't think you're going to see that with France. I think France will be durable enough to hold on. Moreno by decision is the play. I'd be pretty surprised. I mean, here's the thing. Moreno does get hit a lot. I don't think this is the fight at 28 years old that is going to be the decline of Brandon Moreno's chin. I don't see it happening. It could. If you want to get a little creative, you could take France by knockout. I think that's likely the way he wins if he does win it. But Moreno should cruise to a decision and win this one and just, do his thing and get it done. And I personally thought he won the last fight against Figueiredo. So take that for what it's worth. But yeah, Moreno by decision is the play here.
And I mean, I can confidently say that Moreno has maybe one of the biggest turnarounds from a second stint in the UFC, because we saw him go to LFA for that one fight. When he returned, I mean, he almost looked like a new fighter, and he's looked incredible. And then, of course, he had that draw and then that win, and then eventually lost to Figueiredo. But I mean, he looks like a completely new fighter. And the last time he lost to someone not named Davison Figueiredo was in that first UFC stint. So we haven't seen him lose to someone other than Davison since he's come back. So yeah, it'll take an excellent performance from KaraFrance.
Completely agree. All right, let's get to the main event here. Interesting that the champion is the underdog here, Juliana Pena. She is plus 230. Amanda Nunes, the favorite, minus 275. There's a couple schools of thought on this fight. Their first fight, of course, with Pena winning. Some people are like Nunes had an off night. Some people are like Pena had her number. Where do you stand on this, Ben? Who's winning the rematch?
Oh, man, this one's tough because I do side with Nunes here, but I mean, a lot of people do. Dana White even said, even if she loses this fight again, he still thinks she's one of the best women's fighters of all time, which is saying something. Because, I mean, she's built up quite the resume at this point, and, Pena pulled off that ultimate upset. But it is worth mentioning that Nunes did actually win the first round in that fight on all 3 scorecards. She was technically winning the fight, even if she looked off, which is something to say, because in a fight that she looked off and people said she looked really bad, she came out, she didn't look like herself, she still won the first round, which is important in my eyes, because if she won the first round on an off night, what's she going to look like Saturday night, when she's hopefully back on? I mean, everyone's hoping the same thing, that she comes out and she looks like old Amanda again. But like you're saying, maybe Pena has her number. I mean, Pena, she's a very tough fighter. She's very aggressive. Maybe she has the formula to beating Nunes, and maybe that's just it. But this line has come down significantly from the last fight. I think Nunes is like, minus 900, minus 1,000 or something. So that's also worth noting. Maybe the books are like, oh, whoa, they're a little scared of back it up, I don't know. This is a hard fight to call for me. I want to say Nunes just because she's one of the best of all time. But like you said, maybe Pena has her number. I don't know if I'm confident enough backing her here.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't know. I just think there's more evidence of Nunes performing at a high level than Pena. Yeah. And you mentioned the first round. Pena was on her back that whole round. Here's the crazy thing. Nunes never gasses in fights. People always talk about this. Amanda Nunes doesn't have a good gas tank. She's gone 5 rounds a number of times. Maybe she slows down as the fight goes on, but that doesn't mean she has a bad gas tank. A bad gas tank to me would mean that she can't even make it to 3 and 4 and 5, but she has. So that was kind of a weird thing that happened. I have a feeling that she got COVID, I think twice actually prior to that fight. I think there was something going on there, and that's why she slowed down, and Pena just took advantage of that. I don't think we'll see that in this fight. Nunes, again, when you lose the belt, you get that extra motivation and, wanted to be hungry again and get that back here. To me, there's more evidence of Nunes performing at a high level than Pena is. We're not that far removed from Pena getting finished by Germaine Durandamy. She also got finished by Valentina Shevchenko as well. Nunes, you have to go all the way back, other than this Pena loss, you have to go all the way back to when she fought Kat Zingano, when I don't even think she was at American Top Team at the time. The last time she lost like a fight decisively. She's been unstoppable here. So I got to go Nunes here. The question is, does she finish Pena or does she win a decision? I have no idea. I'm with you, though. I'm staying away because you never know. There's always that weird thing that maybe Pena does have her number, but I think Nunes should win based off the evidence we have, in the sense that she has been fighting and taking out better competition than Pena has over her career. So that's my take on the fight.
And well, like you said, those last losses for Pena, Durandamy, and Shevchenko, it's worth mentioning. MMA math here. Amanda Nunes absolutely demolished Durandamy by a unanimous decision, and she's also beaten Shevchenko twice in their
exactly.
So
yeah, you can play a little
that's
MMA
also
math there.
Yeah, a little bit of MMA math, and that was even earlier in Nunes' career. So you could say she's declined, but she's only 34. I don't think she's necessarily declining yet. I think she just came out a little rough in her last fight.
Yeah.
So.
No, I agree. So there you go. That is our breakdown of UFC 277. Make sure you check out Odds Checker US on YouTube. We do these breakdowns every single week. For myself, for Ben, hope you enjoy the pay-per-view this Saturday, and we will see you next week.